Hi everyone. I thought we'd do a bit of an interdisciplinary exercise today in the search for interesting lessons for the themes of the season. In particular, and as outlandish as this might seem, pulling some inspiration from Oscar Wilde, the 19th century Irish writer and poet. In The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is Wilde's only published novel, the story tells of a young man named Dorian Gray, the subject of a painting by artist Basil Hallward. Early in the novel, Dorian meets Lord Henry Wotton, a friend of Basil's, and becomes enthralled by Lord Henry's hedonistic worldview, a view that suggests that the only things worth pursuing in life are beauty and fulfillment of the senses. Realizing that one day his beauty will fade, Dorian expresses a desire to sell his soul, to ensure that the portrait Basil has painted of him will age, rather than he himself. Dorian's wish is fulfilled, and when he subsequently pursues a life of debauchery, the portrait serves as a reminder of the effect that each act has upon his soul, with each sin displayed as a disfigurement of his form in the portrait itself, while he himself remains smooth and beautiful. You can see why this novel might be a good potential theme for the season. It contains themes such as the blackening of the soul, what it means to sin, how sin affects the development of our true selves, what we look like on the outside is a reflection of who we really are, or the relationship between beauty and morality. There are themes of life and death, negative consequences of influence, but most importantly, the book speaks a lot, sometimes in a kind of twisted way, about ideas of repentance and the possibility of correcting mistakes. In fact, there is a moment in the book when Basil quotes a verse from Yeshayahu that we say every morning during Slichot, but I'll let you find that one for yourselves. I'd like to quote one specific passage from the book and then talk about how this idea is discussed by a modern 20th century biblical scholar in the way that it appears in Maimonides' Laws of Repentance. Towards the end of the book, when it seems that Dorian just can't come back from the life that he's chosen and that his sin is going to drag him down into the life he's fallen into, the narrator claims, "There are moments," psychologists tell us, when the passion for sin, or for what the world calls sin, so dominates a nature that every fiber of the body, as every cell of the brain, seems to be instinct with fearful impulses. Men and women at such moments lose the freedom of their will. They move to their terrible end as automatons move. Choice is taken from them, and conscience is killed. Says the narrator that free will seems to be lost at some point because human beings begin to move as automatons. We no longer are making our own decisions or making the decision to do something bad. It's not a thought process anymore. We're not choosing. It's just so become ingrained as a part of who we are that we don't even think about it. We just talk a certain way or act a certain way. It's automatic. It's not even something we think of as being wrong. Nechama Leibowitz, the well-known 20th century biblical scholar, used this idea to explain a strange contradiction in Maimonides' Laws of Repentance. In chapter 5, Parak Hey, Maimonides clearly states, "Ein habore gozer al hadam liyot tov v'lo liyot ra." God does not decree whether or not we are good people or bad people. Man has free will. We make those decisions. The choices we make in life will determine the kind of people we are. But then later, in chapter 6, Parak Vav, Maimonides claims that there's a point where a man can sin and continue to sin so badly, shemon'in mimenu hatshuva, ve'ein manichin lo reshut lashuv me'resho, that God seems to punish man by removing his free will and not allowing him to do tshuva so that he is forced to die and not come back. So which one is it? Are we allowed a way back always? Do we always have free will? Or do we not? Okay, is it possible to lose it? This idea of whether or not this is something that we lose at some point in our lives and there's a point where we can't come back from sin is actually a question that Dorian ponders intensely throughout the course of the second half of the novel. But Nechama solves the contradiction in the Rambam as follows. She says, God has set it up that man always has free will. Every choice we make is up to us. But that sometimes mankind can lose his free will, not because God takes it away, but because man himself puts himself into an opportunity in which he becomes so ingrained in a certain character trait or in a certain habit that he loses, quote unquote, his free will because he can't naturally pull himself out of being so ingrained in it. She says, at the beginning, man is free to choose any path of action he desires. He is afforded equal opportunity to do good or evil. But as soon as he has made his first choice, then the opportunities facing him are no longer so evenly balanced. The more he persists in the first path of his choosing, the harder will it become for him to revert to the good path, even though his essential freedom of choice is not affected. The more he sins, the more his sins themselves act as a barrier between him and repentance. And since we're on a literary theme, she quotes Macbeth, "Things bad begun make strong themselves by ill." This is the nature of who we are as human beings. The first time we choose to talk in a certain way or treat a person a certain way or do something slightly unethical, we're making a choice, and it might seem wrong or seem difficult. But the more we persist in that way, the more it just becomes a part of who we are, and the harder it is to come back. The bright side is that it can be that way for good as well. First time you choose to help someone out when you're busy or you don't really want to and it's a pain, it's a tough choice. But the more you do it, the more it's no longer a choice and simply becomes a part of your character. I think Yom Kippur is a day to think about not only the things we do that we are aware of that we'd like to change, but also the habits, the tendencies, the behavior patterns that are so ingrained in how we think and act and function that we no longer think of them as problematic. Lord Henry claims that the only way to get rid of a temptation is to yield to it. Resist it, he says, and your soul grows sick with longing for the things it has forbidden to itself. The Rambam, according to Nechama, would disagree and claim that the way to rid yourself of a negative character trait or temptation is to resist it, and to resist it, and to continue to resist it until change begins to happen, and you are rid of it because it no longer poses a threat, until the decisions you make become your character and changes the way you interact with your friends, your family, yourself, and your God. Have an inspirational and reflective Yom Kippur and a wonderful Gemar Chatzima Tova.